Mr. Kite's about to school us up, man. It's going to be awesome.
Are we good?
Yes, sir.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, coaches, here we go. I'm going to launch this, and if you got questions, comments, please send them in the chat, and Justin will field those. I'll do my best to watch them, but I'm going to try to stay with the content here. And if at all possible, we'll try to unmute you. I'd love to hear your voice as well, but let's jump into this content. Now, I'm calling this the heart of leadership, and what I really want to emphasize to all of us who are coaches for a living is this core principle is that your team will perform to the level of leadership that you provide. And if you have followed us in the past, you know we believe deeply in the performance pathway, that leaders build culture, that culture drives behavior, and behavior produces results. Leadership, culture, behavior, results. And leadership is the triggering factor in that entire pathway. And the notion of a coach as a leader is something that is talked about a lot more these days than has been in the past, but I still think there's a significant gap between our understanding of what leadership is and the way we actually lead in our profession. And so my passion is to help coaches, in fact, all leaders, whether it's a business or a school or an athletics team, to improve the way they lead. And leadership, candidly, gentlemen and ladies, if there's any women on here, it's a superpower. And leadership is not authority based on a position that you have. It's influence based on trust you've earned. Now, I'm going to emphasize that tonight. Now, let me say it again. Leadership is not authority based on a title or a position that you have. It's influence based on trust you've earned. The greatest task of leadership isn't getting people to do what you want. It's getting kids to want to do what you want. Mm-hmm. That's the heartbeat of leadership. And I'm going to emphasize tonight, again, this notion of heart to heart. Several times in the slides I'm going to show you, it's going to say what comes from the heart touches the heart. The place to begin, if you want to have an elite football team, is with yourself. The place to begin, if you want an elite program, or if you're on this webcast tonight and you coach baseball or basketball or swimming or wrestling or track and field or girls field hockey or whatever you happen to coach, if you want your program to go to the next level, you have to go to the next level. And one of the things that greatly disturbs me, to be candid with you, is how uncoached coaches are. Now, I get it. We go to clinics all the time. But when you go to the clinics, it's amazing. There's like a 10 to 1, 15 to 1, 20 to 1 drills and skills to, mostly, drills and skills stuff, as opposed in strategy, and as opposed to leadership and culture and emotional management and the kind of R factor kind of stuff that we teach. We're in desperate need to improve the way we lead. So I'm going to share with you tonight 5 things about the heart of leadership. I even toyed with this to call this the essentials of leadership. Now, if you listen to our podcast, this actually comes from Urban's and my podcast, where we talked about hope and opportunity. And he and I talked a whole bunch yesterday, a bunch this morning about some stuff. He's doing online stuff with coaches and athletes at Ohio State. He and Shelly are down in Florida at their house down there. So, they're suffering right on the intercoastal there, fishing, having fun, where the rest of us are in central Ohio with the weather. But we talked about this, and in the podcast, we were talking about what is it that a leader has to do. And here's what I recognize as he and I were talking, and what I've looked back over 40 years of doing this for a living. Here's the essentials. This is the heart of leadership. Number 1, you have to engage with your athletes. Number 2, you have to envision with your athletes. Number 3, you have to equip your student athletes. 4, you have to execute, which we all know. And notice where execution is on the list, guys. It's number 4. And then number 5, you have to encourage. Engage, envision, equip, execute, and encourage. I'm going to go back for a second. I want you to take this statement that's on that screen. Your team will perform to the level of leadership you provide. Now, let's go look at the next slide again. Look at those 5 E's. Your skill at doing these 5 things will determine the performance of your football team or whatever team you coach. How skillful you at engaging with your kids. That's a skill. It's a mindset and a skill set. Number 2, how skillfully do you envision and communicate? Number 3, how skillfully do you equip your student athletes, which I'm going to talk about, football skills and behavior skills, athletic skills and behavior skills. How skillfully do you lead execution on your football team, and how skillfully do you encourage? Those are all competencies. And I'm assuming we're all on tonight because we want to get better. Is that a fair assumption, Justin?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we all want to get better. So all of us know that as coaches, we're constantly teaching and evaluating. So I want you to evaluate yourself tonight. Now, against what I'm going to talk about what are the techniques and mechanics of each of the 5, and I want you to grade yourself. When I'm done with this webcam, this is not for me. Don't send me your grades. This is for you. I want you to give yourself a grade on a scale of 1 to 10 on how skillfully you engage based on what I say, how skillfully do you envision based on what I say, how skillfully do you equip based on what I say, how skillfully do you execute based on what I say, how skillfully do you encourage. I'm going to give you mechanics, physics for each of the 5. Your task tonight as a learner, your task tonight as a coach who wants to get better is to use these truths tonight and evaluate yourself against the standards I'm going to share. Okay? Is that good, Justin?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, here we go. Let's talk about what does it mean to engage. When as a leader of a group of young men or young women, if you coach girls, what does it mean to engage? So understand this about engagement. Buy-in starts with you. Connect with your student athletes and build trust. I hear way too often coaches talk about buy-in, wanting the kids to buy in to the program. They're buying into what we're teaching. I want the kids, and I'm not against buy-in, obviously. I want the kids to believe in what you do. I want them to believe in you. I want them to buy into your program, your culture, all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't start with the kids buying in. It starts with you buying in. Do you buy into your student athletes? Do you believe in them? Are you committed to them? Because I know this about coaching people. I know this, and it's if I'm consulting to a Fortune 500 CEO, all right, and this was, and if Urban were here with me right now, he would absolutely underscore this. One of the things that has bonded Urban and me together was I bought into him first. I bought into him as not as a coach, not as at the time that we started working together, 2-time national championship. I bought into him as a man, as a husband, as a dad, as a person. I want to get to know him.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And he bought into me as a person. And that personal connection, that personal relationship is everything in our business, guys. It's everything. So don't ask your student athletes to buy into you until you've bought into them. Let me give that to you another way. Don't ask them to give you their heart until you've given them yours. This is where this thing starts. And I'm going to challenge you. It's easy to buy into the really good athlete, isn't it? And I'll assume that he's a good kid and doing stuff. It's hard to buy into the kids that are hard to buy into. But that's the challenge. And how you buy into any athlete is how you buy into every athlete. Don't for a second think that the third string kid that's never going to play a down of varsity in a meaningful minutes, a PT in a game. Don't think for a minute that the way you treat that kid isn't recognized by the rest of the team. The kids pick up on the extent to which you buy into all your student athletes. That's number one. Number two, you can only push players as far as the level of trust that you've built with them. Your job as a coach is to push players really hard, really far, but you can't push them any further than the level of trust that they've put into you. Kids follow the leader first and the program second. They don't buy into the program, they buy into you. They don't buy into the culture, they buy into you. They don't buy into the wing tee or the spread or whatever you run, they buy into you and your staff. And that's why if you want to get players to perform at a very high level, you have to have really deep trust. We say it this way at Ohio State, that the highest levels of performance require the deepest levels of trust. And I don't believe at this, and I know this because I'm out there all the time in all these programs, and this is true across the sports spectrum, is that I don't believe coaches focus enough on trust building. They assume it. They think that the kids are going to trust them because they've got the position, the title. And listen, it doesn't work that way. You have to be skillful at it. And trust is earned. It's not given. And trust is not given to you by your position. It's earned by how you behave towards the kids. And that's just something we got to understand. And then one of the things you have to do to engage with these student athletes is you have to be an elite listener. Now, I know as a coach, we spend a lot of time talking, and we should. I get it. And you got to teach, you got to communicate, you got to instruct, you got to make demands, all that stuff. Yes, do that. And we'll talk about that a bit in a minute. But be an elite listener. You have to find the time to spend with your student athletes and get to know them on a one-to-one, person-to-person basis. Get to know the kid, not just the player. How about this? You need to know who you coach more than you know what you coach. I know coaches who they know their schemes and drills and skills like the back of their hand. They don't know the kids as well as they know the scheme. You give me a coach who knows his kids better than he knows his scheme, he's going to win a lot of football games. He's going to change a lot of lives. Now, I'm a huge X's and O's guy. I'm a huge drills and skill guy. I love the doing of the sport, but I understand that the relationship is the driver. The relationship is the driver. You cannot push players any further than the level of trust you've built with them. The highest levels of performance require the deepest levels of trust. So let me just stop right there. Justin, thoughts, questions about engaging with student athletes?
No, I think that's so important, and I'm glad you said I'm a big relationships guy. So I couldn't agree more. I think and that's something that I like to do with my student athletes is with my position group, I should say, is meet with them during the week and not discuss football, so they can get to know me better outside of just being the football coach and being in the building. We actually meet and we won't talk about anything football related. We'll just talk about everything else. So getting them to fully understand you as a person, I believe is one of the most important things that you could do. And I'm glad you said that. And I was curious to ask that question where it was, do you think in any industry, the most important thing is to get to know you as the person yourself?
Yeah, there's no question. I know that whenever I do these training, when I work with a program that, we teach this stuff, and then as the coaches and the players get to meet with me or anybody on my team, my staff one-on-one, they end up talking about 50% of it's not related to their sport. Just to your point. So
Right.
the last piece here on engage, guys, is, you've heard it, and it's a cliche because it's true. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
We got a question here, Mr. Kight.
Sure.
How do you get coaches on staff to buy into this process?
You got to teach them. This is a learned skill. And I get this. In fact, John and I have had this conversation a lot where not every coach obviously buys in, and they kind of poo-poo this, and I find out that this is generally true. It's a broad brush. I get it. Coaches my age, the old school guys, tend to be the ones who resist this the most. Now, there are some younger guys who do. I get it. I've met them. But some of the older school guys are the ones who think that this is the soft stuff and we're being too soft on kids. Well, I'll tell you, you spend any time around me, I'm not soft. I'm not soft at all. I'll push the daylights out of you. I will push you hard, but I want to get to know you. But you got to teach this. These are learned skills, and this isn't one session. I'm talking now coaches. I'm talking teaching this to coaches on your staff. You have to relentlessly teach this. What coaches will do, cynics will do, is they will resist you because they think you'll give up before they will, because they've learned that that's true. Cynics typically have found out that they tend to be more tenacious than the optimists are. But you have to be relentless in teaching this. And it's uncomfortable for a lot of coaches to make this switch to this. I grew up in an era where all they did was yell and scream and cuss and hit you. That's what they did. My dad did that. That's how I was coached. I didn't know any other way until I went to UCLA, and I ran track at UCLA, and the building that track was in the same building our locker room was in the same building as basketball, and I got to meet John Wooden. My 3 years at UCLA were his final 3 years, and I got to watch him coach for 3 years. He's the one who got me started with all this stuff. I'm not a basketball guy. I was a track guy, but he was unbelievable. I watched John. It was like, it was like they called him the Wizard of Westwood, because what he did looked like magic. He was super intense and never got angry. And he was deeply connected to the student athletes on his team. And he connected with me, and I'm not even on his team. I met him in the training room. I was in there getting some treatment. He got to talking, and the dude just cared about me and asked me what I was doing, found out what my aspirations in life were. And he began to give me some advice and insight about leadership and culture. And this is where it all started for me. John Wooden, UCLA, 1972. And he wasn't even my coach. Wow. And he would invite me to come watch, and he just pushed his athletes so hard and never got angry. Never got angry. And all his energy went into helping them get better and build that relationship. So if you want the coaches on your staff to do these 5 E's, and you want them to relate to the athletes this way, you have to teach them that. And you have to be relentless about teaching your coaches. Less time on X's and O's, more time on this. Now, I'm not saying I'm not saying X's and O's don't matter, but this is what will test you. Right. And it will really bug your coaches who are into drills and skills and X's and O's. And they go, oh, coach, we got to go over film. Yeah, we do. But let's go over what it means to engage with our players. What's our trust building strategy? How's it going with that player and that player and that player? Hey, Bob, you have not connected with Jeremy yet. What are you doing? What's your strategy? Have you talked with him? What's going on in his home life? How's school going? He's got a girl from it now. What's going on? You got to have those conversations, guys. You got to have those conversations.
There's a question here, Mr. Kight, and it's a couple parts. What are the best ways to build, in your opinion, what are the best ways to build trust with your athletes? And what are the best or any activities to build trust? And then to kind of part two of that is, what would be the best way to build back trust if you lost it with a player?
Yeah, those are great questions. You got to come up with your own strategy for this, and there's a cadence to it. The word cadence is very important to me and very important to the elite coaches that I've seen. So one, you got to spend one-on-one time with the players. Two, you have to do some things away from the field. At Ohio State, here's what we did. And this was in the winter of 2014. And Urban and I sat down and we made a decision about how we're going to help the coaches build more trust. So we taught the trust triad. We taught this to coaches. We did a 6-week series at 6 a.m. in the morning. We went for an hour and a half, 6 to 7:30, sometimes 2 hours. I would teach, and Urban was a student in this. And we made the determination that, and he made this decision that he needed to be a student in the trust classes, not a teacher of it, because he wanted to learn. And then so we came up with this strategy. Each one of our assistant coaches had to do a community service activity with his players. We have nine coaches, 9 units. So community service had to go to over the coach's house for a barbecue or a dinner and just a fun time at the coach's house as a second activity. And then the third activity was something fun. Paintball. One of the coaches had a boat and he took kids rafting or, pulling behind a raft the back of his boat. Someone went to a water park. They did all kinds of things. So those were 3 mandatory activities that the coaches had to do to build a relationship. This is in addition to academic meetings, in addition to obviously film study and one-on-one assessment and feedback about how the kids were executing the football side of life. So those are specific activities that we had the coaches engage in at Ohio State, and they do it to this day. And all the coaches to a man said, you don't have to mandate this. Thank you. Just thank you for thinking of it. I mean, they all wanted to do it. It was like, I know it's mandatory because Urban wants us to do it, but every coach just said, let's go. And they were very creative. Coaches, a lot of them just went above and beyond. They did more than that. So one-on-one conversations about the kid's life, academic conversations, obviously football conversations, and then community service activity, something fun at the home with the coach to get to see the coach and his family in a non-football setting, and then something fun out in an activity that they did together, paintballing or whatever it would be. And it worked really well. To this day, that's a big part of what Ohio State does. Okay.
Awesome.
All right, so that's the engage piece. And then the big message here is that technical knowledge about football is a ticket that gets you to a game that relationships win. I'm not worried about your technical knowledge. I mean, we'll talk about teaching here in a minute, but for the most part, I think that the need is to – technical knowledge gets you on the field of football, but relationships win the game of football. There's no question in my mind. It's interesting. I posted this on Twitter a while ago, I think this past week, but if you listen to every championship team after they win the championship in every sport, what do they always say? We really what? We really loved each other. The cohesion of this team was fantastic. We were so close, closest team like every time. Hockey, football, basketball, baseball, soccer, you name it. It's like, man, we loved each other. That was the glue that the power, if you will, that made that season tick. Right. Number 2 is envision. So you've got the relationship building, you're engaging and connecting. Now, number 2, you got to envision, be skillful, at painting the picture for the kids. So communicate the vision, paint the picture, help everybody see the purpose of your program, the plan, and their place in it. Write those 3 things down: purpose, plan, place? What's the why of your program? Why do you do what you do? Why are you coaching this sport? What's the purpose? And then what is your plan? How are you going to go about doing football? And the plan is, yes, here's how we're going to get big and strong and fast. Here's how we're going to do offense and defense and special teams. Here's how we're going to do weight training, conditioning, and nutrition and academics. But then also the larger, here's our plan for you as a young person. And Ohio State Urban instituted this thing called Real Life Wednesdays, where the plan was, it was for plan following football. And we all told our guys, and most of you are not going to go to the NFL, and those who do will not be there very long. Some of you just be at the camp, and then you're, free agent. You won't make a team. Some of you make a team for a year or two, but whoever you're at some point, you're not going to be in football anymore. So our plan at Ohio State was give you skills for life. And so Real Life Wednesday, which has become now the avatar for this in the nation, is developing the whole person. So what is your purpose for your team? What's your plan for how you're going to do it? And then and help every single athlete see their place on the team, including the third string kids. Everybody has to feel like they belong there. The sense of belonging is huge. The number one fear of human being is not belonging. That's the number one fear. People say it's the fear of public speaking. Actually, technically not true. The reason we fear public speaking is we think people won't like us and we won't belong. So it's back to that again. So make sure every single person on your program, managers, stat girls, everybody needs to know their place and it's valued. And you got to communicate that vision. So paint the picture and then communicate your culture. What are your core beliefs and what are your behavior standards? And I'm not going to go into it tonight. We're big believers in the culture playbook, and we've developed that process. When BK was with me at Focus 3, we developed this. It's a way to communicate culture. I don't think you should have any more than 3 core beliefs. I mean, 4 max, no more than, but 3 is perfect. And what do we believe? How do we behave? And you make those absolutely crystal clear. And when I say communicating the vision and communicating the culture, that is not an event. That's a never-ending process that goes on all year long. You don't have a team meeting, hand out a document or put a poster on the wall, and you think that envisioning is no. It's so take the word envision. What does it mean? It means do I see? And that's the whole point. So it's not what you say, it's what they hear and what they feel is what they see. So it's not what you say, guys. Just because it's clear to you doesn't mean it's clear to them. They listen to you through the lens of their life. And you've got to be world class at speaking into their heart, which is the whole point about what comes from the heart touches the heart. If you speak from the head and not from the heart, I guarantee you today's teenage athlete isn't going to connect with you. He's not at the level that you want. And that means, this goes back to my whole theme tonight, is look inside of yourself. When you coach, do you coach from the heart or do you coach from the head? And you can feel the passion from me. I mean, I want you to coach from the heart. And there's a difference. And I guarantee you the kids feel it. Guarantee it. And again, this is a classic Focus 3 thing that we've used. I've used this for 40 years. There's the team culture, there's a unit culture, then 20 square feet. Team unit me, if you will, or team unit you. But at Ohio State, it was 9 strong, unit strong, 1 strong. And it's 20 square feet is a metaphor for every athlete's, every coach's sphere of ownership of your culture. And this is use this diagram. Yeah. Paint this picture. Put it on a board. Draw it and talk about it all the time. You should talk about this minimum once a week. Here's our team, here's our team purpose and plan. Each unit, coaches coach the various units on the team. But then 20 square feet is you communicate everybody on your team is a builder of culture. Everyone. And you teach the athletes that they are responsible for everything that goes on inside their 20 square feet. It's a metaphor, by the way. It's not a literal space. 20 is an arbitrary number. When I teach this in Europe, I did a soccer team recently, and it's metric. It's not even square feet. But literally every athlete controls his 20 square feet. Now think about this. Inside, athletes have control. Outside, they have impact. Outside, they've got control. Inside, they've got control. Outside, they have impact. So my message to student athletes is this, and to coaches: your strengths are our strengths. Your weaknesses are our weaknesses. What you do and don't do in your 20 square feet affects our football team. Fact, by the way. You're not eligible, that affects our team.
Mm-hmm.
You mess around with girls the wrong way, you're not on our team. You take drugs and drink, you don't help our team. You get in trouble with the law, it's not help our team. You're in a bad mood, it doesn't help our team. You're self-centered, and you're one of those athletes that always wants the ball and you complain when you don't, you hurt our football team. Mm-hmm. But your 20 square feet matters. What you do and what you don't do in your 20 square feet matters. Now, in their 20 square feet, there's two things you teach them: what they believe and how they behave. Belief and behavior. And you're talking about developing teenagers, right? You're talking about kids that are 8th grade, 9th grade, and all the way through. These are teenagers who are learning to believe and behave. It's a journey for them. But same thing for a coach. And I would go back and say to my coaching staff, if you're on this tonight, you're a head coach, or even if you're a staff guy, and you talk to other guys on the staff, if you don't buy into what we're doing as a coach, if you're not committed to these 5 E's we're talking about and the culture we're talking about, you don't think deep trust is critical and the things, the heart of leadership, you don't believe in that, look what you do to our football team as a coach. And that's a hard conversation, man. But that you got to have that. I mean, the thing about some coaches are so emotionally fragile. It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me. I mean, jettison the ego. Jettison the ego. I love, candidly, I love being in a staff room when there's some coach that pushes back, because I will win that conversation. I'm telling you, I'll win that conversation. I'm 67 years old. I ain't losing that conversation. I don't have any years left hardly. I'm going to live to be 107, but I don't know how long I'll be able to do this. But we gotta do this from the heart. So back again, just envision, communicate the vision, communicate the culture. It's not what you say, it's what they hear and feel, and what comes from the heart touches the heart. And you got to engage and envision everybody and make sure they understand how their 20 square feet fits in and how what they do and don't do matters to the football team. Makes sense, Justin?
Yes, sir. We got a question here, Mr. Kight.
Okay.
From Coach Flannery. What are some of the core values that you like, and what are the core values of Focus 3?
Yeah, so let me give you Ohio State football first, just from a football perspective. So when I first started working with Urban, the 2013, we taught E plus R equals O. We spent the entire year teaching the R factor, and it was very successful. But the kids were just committed. The coaches were committed. It was really exciting to see. But then at the end of the year, we lost to Michigan State in the Big Ten championship game, and then the following game was the Orange Bowl against Clemson. We lost to Clemson, and they were close games, but we lost them. And Urban and I sat down early February, cold, snowy, dark February morning. Sun hadn't even come up yet, and we're sitting in his office and looking at each other and evaluating the season and looking back and then looking forward, and what did we learn and what we're going to do differently. And we came up with this understanding that there was a need to clarify the culture more clearly and strengthen the trust relationships. Those are the two big. Still teach ERO, but then add clarity on culture and clarity on trust. And I mentioned to him, and Urban's interesting. He first got a little angry with me when I shared this with him. And by the way, you have to experience one-on-one with Urban in his office when he's mad at you. That's a life experience that not many people get to have, but it's a game changer. But then again, and I don't mean to, I'm a behind the scenes guy. So, but there's one thing more uncomfortable than Urban Meyer being mad at you, and that's Tim Kight being mad at you. So I won that one. And so here's what I told him. I said, Urban, you communicate the culture with incredible clarity and passion, but our assistant coaches do not. And he got mad because he said, they believe in it. I said, I know they do, but they believe in it at a level that's not deep enough. And we haven't asked them or tasked them or mandated for them or equipped them to communicate the culture with the same clarity and passion that you do. And I said, Urban, it's not even written down any place. And I told him about the culture playbook methodology and template. And I said, Urban, I know what your 3 core beliefs are. I know what they are. I've listened to you for an entire year. There's no question what they are. They're relentless effort. They're competitive excellence and power of the unit. And he looked at me and goes, that's exactly right. I go, that's right. So those are the 3. I said, you talk about them all the time. Our assistant coaches don't. And he goes, what are we going to do? I said, we're going to coach them. We're going to teach them. And I said, I'm going to come up with a culture playbook. And I did. And so the culture playbook is, what do we believe is column 1? How do we behave is column 2? And what outcome do we produce is column 3? Belief, behavior, outcome, BBO. And the 3 beliefs are, relentless effort, competitive excellence, power of the unit. And then we describe the behavior that each one of those, and it's got to be compelling, clear, concise, and cannot be long. The behavior for relentless effort, real simple. 4 to 6 seconds, point A to point B as hard as you can go. That's it. 4 to 6, A to B. You go to, still to this day, you go to Ohio State football, there's not a day that goes by you will not hear 4 to 6, A to B 50 times in that. Well, right now you can't hear anything in the facility. But when we come back from the CV-19 virus, 4 to 6, A to B, 4 to 6, A to B. And that means 4 to 6 is the length of a football play, you know that, and point A to point B, as hard as you can go. And and we coach the coaches how to teach that. And then competitive excellence was always be taking reps. And that would be either mental reps or game reps. A game rep simply means physical, right? Mental reps in the head, game rep is the drill you're doing or in the scrimmage or in the game. And always be doing reps. You're always locked in. And then the power of the unit was love each other. We call it uncommon commitment to each other. Now, the outcome of relentless effort is we're stronger than any situation we face. The outcome of competitive excellence is we're ready when our number is called. And the outcome of brotherhood of trust, or the outcome of power of the unit, is the brotherhood of trust. So that's the Ohio State football culture. Relentless effort, competitive excellence, power of the unit. And you think about it, what are those 3 things? Those 3 things are effort, execution, and teamwork. That's what they are, which is at the end of the day what you need to have success in a football team. So I hope that helps. That's a great description of what we did at Ohio State. And I've helped I think I've helped over 100 different athletic teams now in the last 5 or 6 years develop their culture playbook. And should become the DNA of your football team.
There's Mr. Kight, there's another good question here about core values. And
sure.
Coach wants to know, Coach Hutchins, how would you go about discovering your own values if you're just starting your career, and how do you narrow them down to 3?
You mean personal or team?
I believe he's talking team.
The way we do it is you brainstorm. You put a bunch of values up on a board, and it's a cloud of ideas. There's a bunch of them. And then what you discover is a lot of them are kind of in the same category, and you keep whittling them down until all of a sudden, I call them buckets. So like this bucket over here is collaboration, teaming kind of stuff. This bucket over here is effort type stuff and energy type stuff. And this bucket over here is execution type stuff. And when you put them all on the board and brainstorm, and then you organize them according to common themes or common buckets, you'll discover that you'll start to distill down to something pretty definitive. And because at the end of the day, there really isn't a wide variety of values for success for a culture of a football team. There's just there's some pillars. For example, what I just said a moment ago, how important is effort? How important is execution? How important is teamwork? It's going to be some form of that. There are others too. And here's what you have to do. This is the temptation. Don't make the mistake of thinking you have to list everything.
Right.
And just because you land on the 3 pillars or the 4 pillars doesn't mean other things aren't important or aren't valuable. But way too many coaches have way too many long lists. Kids can't remember 5 things, 6 things. You're trying to teach them, the 3 technique. You're trying to teach, cover 3, cover 2, cover 0. You're trying to teach the quarterback to read. You're trying to. They got school. So don't make it too difficult. I can remember relentless effort, 4 to 6, A to B. I can remember competitive excellence, always be doing my reps in my head. I can remember love my brother. I can remember that. That's memorable. And you got to put it into, Urban calls them sound bites. I call them power statements. Compelling statements that communicate the value and what it looks like behaviorally. So whiteboard it, put a bunch of stuff up, all kinds of ideas, brainstorm it, and then just distill it down until you come to the core 3 or 4 at the most. Okay. All right. The number 3 essential of leadership, the third E in leadership, is equip. Now we've engaged, relationships being built. We're deepening our trust with the student athletes. We're envisioning the purpose, the plan, the place of every athlete. We're envisioning, communicating the culture, the standards we want everybody. Now it's time to equip them to play the game and to live life. And so players experience what you coach, how you coach, and why you coach. So remember, as a teacher, as a coach of young people, they're experiencing what you coach, that's the content. They're experiencing how you coach, that's your methodology, and they're experiencing why you coach, that's your purpose. And whether you know it or not, the kids are experiencing that. So you'd better know your what, you better know your how, you better know your why. Know your content, be great at coaching it from a methodology perspective, and then know your motivation, know your purpose, because the kids feel all 3 of those things. And if I was doing a poll right now, I would ask you, which of those 3 do you think most coaches neglect the most? They neglect the what, they neglect the how, they neglect the why in terms of their coaching. I know what I think about that, but interesting thought. Number 2, equip your players with athletic skills and behavior skills. Teach them E plus R equals O. I don't know how many of you on this webcast tonight are familiar with ERO. It's event response outcome. It's a behavioral skill toolbox that we developed. I've been teaching it for 40 years all around the world. And we don't control events. We do control our response, and it's our response that produces the outcome. And it's a skill. And there's 6 R factor disciplines. We call it the R factor for obvious reasons. And you got to teach it to them. And football or whatever sport you coach is a great context to teach R factor skills. Like right now, we're in the midst of this CV-19 issue. We're going to get out of this based on how we respond.
Right.
We didn't choose this event. And most of the events, football is a never-ending flow of events. And what we want to do is teach athletes behavior skill, how to manage their response to the events of life. And you got to teach that as well as football. And you got to dedicate. It's got to be a constant flow. Real quick note on that: we have online R Factor course that we're redoing right now. That stay connected to our website, follow on Twitter, and in about a month, I think we've filmed it all. I just got done with the filming of it. Thankfully, now we're in the post-production. And David Trichel's overseeing that for us, and it's pretty cool stuff. I can't wait to see it come out. And then we're going to do another one on leadership too. The number 3, be a teacher, not a teller. When I observe coaches, and when coaching staffs have the courage to ask me to come on site and watch them, sometimes even film them. Urban and I did this. We filmed coaches one time. It was pretty interesting. Mm. Too many tellers, not enough teachers. Don't equate telling with teaching. I wish John Wooden were alive and sitting right here. He would come out of his chair, because that's what made John so great. He was a great teacher. He was a great teacher. And when I say teach ATE, that's assignment, technique, effort. ATE. You should always be teaching assignment, technique, effort. Every single play, every single drill, a player needs to know his assignment. He needs to know the technique associated with that and the level of effort required on that play. And when I coach football, you ask the kids that played for me, and many of whom are coaches today, they never forget this. I gave ATE feedback nonstop. And every drill, every play. Hey, you knew your assignment. That's awesome. Your technique was off. Here was the missing piece. Teach them that. Effort was pretty good. Awesome. Or whatever. I would always give ATE feedback. And when you adopt the ATE methodology, what you'll find, if you don't do it with anger, by the way, don't use anger. Jettison the anger, guys. Jettison it. Stop yelling. I said as I yelled to you. You got to stop with the anger. When you get angry, you're simply telling the athletes you don't know what you're doing. When you get mad, you're simply communicating to your athletes you've lost skill at how to teach. Now, the great contradiction here or challenge is intensity without anger. I mentioned that with Coach Wooden. Intensity without anger. That's the great challenge that we all have. The athletes want you to be intense. They don't need or want you to be angry. Now, I used to tell my coaches, Coach, you're allowed to yell and get angry 5 times the entire year. Choose them wisely. Like there may be a situation that pops up where displaying anger with, visual, verbal, vocal anger is appropriate because of the severity of what happened, but that's rare. And when you do it rarely, it has a huge positive impact. But if you do it all the time, they're tuning you out, guys.
Yep.
Telling you, they're tuning you out. And I've watched this where a coach gets mad, an athlete tunes the coach out, and the coach gets even, what? Angrier, which it pushes the athlete further away.
Yep.
How about this? Don't get furious, get curious. That's your phrase. If the kid's not doing what you want, why? Why? So be a teacher, not a teller. Teach ATE, assignment, technique, effort. And then don't equate intensity with anger. Learn how to be intense without being mad. And that is, coaches come up to me all the time. I just did before all this hit, I did 600 coaches clinic for Glacier in Cincinnati. I was teaching some of this stuff, and it's a lineup of coaches afterwards saying, "Oh my gosh, I do not know how to be intense without being angry," and it's a syndrome. So just remember one last time: when you get angry a lot, you're communicating that you don't really know how to coach very well. And if you tell me you're frustrated, I get it, but here's the problem with that: you're frustrated because you're not getting what you want, which means you're self-centered. When a coach gets angry because he says, "I'm frustrated. I want that kid to do well." I know you do, but you're getting mad because you're not getting what you want. And that means you're self-centered. And that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. All right, so the coach that communicates, educates, and motivates with the greatest clarity has an enormous competitive advantage. On Friday nights, when you look across the field at the coaching staff that you're going to coach against, you ask yourself, am I a better communicator, educator, and motivator than those guys on the other side of because my coaching is about to be tested. My leadership is about to be tested. My level of engagement, my level of envisioning, my level of equipping is about to be tested. If those guys on the other side of the field done it better than we do, they're going to win tonight. If we've done it better than them, we're going to win tonight. That's how to think about this. And then number 4, obviously, we got to execute. I mean, it's all great, engage, fantastic, envision, tremendous, right? Equip, but now we got to go do it, right? So there it is again. Look at it. ATE. It's all about assignment, technique, and effort. Yep. That's what execution is about. Do you know your assignment? Do you use the right technique? Do you bring the right amount of effort? It's relentless about this, to the point where the kid, it's in their DNA. And I made this point earlier. I was going to make this point earlier. When you do this the right way, the kids will actually coach themselves. They'll get back in the line after doing a drill, and their teammates will give them ATE feedback. It becomes culture. It becomes the cadence of the program. Number 2, relentless effort's essential. Execution will follow. Big deal. Don't ever allow execution to get in the way of effort. That's another mistake I see. I can fix poor execution. I can't fix poor effort. So tell this to your players. Go as hard as you can, and then when you make a mistake, we'll fix it. Mm-hmm. But don't expect perfect execution. What you want is relentless effort, and then add execution as you go. Coach Wooden would do it this way. He would do a drill. He'd walk, and this is what walkthroughs are great for, right? Coach Wooden would do this. We'd walk through a drill slowly and get it down perfectly, and then speed it up till they made a mistake. Then explain the mistake, then go back and do it again. Wow. Slowly, perfectly. Speed it up to error, to failure, and then go back and do it again, and then again, and then again. So relentless effort is essential. I can fix poor execution. I can't fix poor effort. And that's an important thing to communicate to the young people. Number 3 is reaches and reps. Train at the edge. Push them to error. Push them to mistakes. So we know reps, right? Do reps, and reach. Go to the edge of their ability. And I don't want to get into the brain science of this. I have a whole nother teaching called The Edge about how the brain works, how to overcome, how to perform beyond your talent. But you learn at the edge of your ability. You don't learn in the comfort zone. You don't learn in the zone of comfort. Watch any great athlete train, and they do X amount of reps in the fundamentals to reinforce fundamentals. Then they train in things they aren't good at. Tom Brady does exactly this. Peyton Manning did exactly this. You train on the fundamentals, you rep the fundamentals to reinforce those, then you train the new stuff. reaches and reps. And a reach simply means the edge, where you go to the edge of your ability. And it's uncomfortable, so embrace productive discomfort. Teach that to your athletes. Embrace productive discomfort. If you're comfortable, you're not getting better. It's just real simple. Real simple. You don't grow in the comfort zone. You just don't. Now, again, you're in the comfort zone to start practice. You're in the comfort zone for walkthrough. You're in the comfort zone to reinforce the fundamentals. You're in the comfort zone to reinforce what already the team or the athlete does well, but then push them to the edge where it's uncomfortable and make sure that they understand the productivity of the discomfort. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, and then use mistakes as feedback. Mistakes are going to happen. There's just feedback. A mistake is just an opportunity to go again with greater insight. That's all it is. And the coaches who get super upset on mistakes are making a mistake. That's a mistake. Right. Now, obviously, we don't like mistakes. We don't want mental mistakes. I get all that. But a mistake is feedback. I'm going to make this comment and put it up here. Yeah, defeat fear. Listen, your job is to create a culture of belief, not a culture of fear. Your job is to create a culture of belief, not a culture of fear. If an athlete is playing with a motivation to avoid your anger, that athlete's not going to perform at his best. Let me say this again. If an athlete is doing drills, going through practice, performing on Friday nights or in the playoffs to avoid your anger, that athlete is not going to perform at his best. You give me two kids of equal talent and been training the same drills and skills and technique. This kid is afraid of his coach. This kid believes in his coach. And those two kids meet. Who's going to win that matchup? The belief kid or the fear kid? Who's going to win that matchup? It's the belief kid. A culture of achievement versus a culture of punishment. The ball's coming down. The athlete's going, oh my gosh, if I don't catch it, my coach is going to scream at me. Another athlete, the ball's coming out. It's mine, it's mine. See the tip, catch the tip, and it belongs to me. Who's going to catch that football most often? Defeat fear. Young people have enough to be afraid of. Don't make you one of those things. I'm a tad intense on this, gentlemen, as you can tell. Okay, so that's execution. ATE, relentless effort's essential. Execution will follow. Train at the edge, do the reaches and reps, embrace productive discomfort, use the mistakes as feedback, and defeat fear. Summarize it this way. Work the process, invest the time, solve the problems. That's how anything's achieved. There's a process that's required, there's a time that's necessary, and then there's problems along the way. Every day of my life, I work the process, I invest the time, and I expect problems. I do not expect a problem-free day. I don't. I love doing the work, I love investing the time, and I love solving the problems. Do not resist the process, don't resent the time, and don't complain about the problems. Work the process, invest the time, solve the problems. Do that as a coach and teach it to your kids. You get a team that does what's on that screen, what can your team achieve? Same thing with your staff. Don't let the staff complain. Work the process, invest the time, solve the problems. And then finally, this fifth piece, huge, is encourage. And I don't know if you know this or not. The word encourage is Latin for strength of heart. Courage is Latin for heart. Or courage. Courage is strength of heart. Encourage means to give strength of heart to someone else. So core means heart. Courage means strength of heart. Encourage means to give strength of heart to someone else.
That's awesome.
Say it again. Core means heart. Coronary unit, coronary bypass. So core is Latin for heart. Courage means inner strength, strength of heart. To encourage another person means to give that other person strength of heart. But you can't give something you don't have. So you have to be a man of courage to encourage other people. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think if you're afraid, it's hard to build a culture of belief if you operate from fear. So lead and teach with courage. And that means you got to cultivate your heart. This goes back to the whole point of this webcast tonight is lead from the heart. Then two, believe. Again, there it is. What comes from the heart touches the heart. Believe in those kids. And here's the thing about coaching. You got to believe in your athletes sometimes before they believe in themselves. Right?
That's true.
You have to believe in them before they believe in themselves. Teenagers are not wired to be confident. You have some that are. In fact, some that are too confident. But for the most part, I think leadership is the transfer of belief. That's what leadership is. And they got to believe in, let me go back to this. They got to believe in this. That's what they got to believe in. Doing the work, investing the time, and solving the problems. That's what they got to believe in. It's not belief just in themselves alone. It's belief in the work. It's belief in the ethic of the work. It's not the wanting, it's the working. It's the belief in the value of doing it time after time, reps, reps, reps. Belief in that whole time investment, and belief in we can solve the problem. I mean, yeah, problems are painful, but they're solvable. That's what you do. Number 3 is don't label. Big, big mistake that the coaches make. Everybody makes this. Don't label kids. Describe behavior, don't label a kid. He's acting lazy is one thing, but don't call him lazy. So, and I know it's hard. I get it. You get a kid who's constantly lazy, and he's lazy. You know, not necessarily. In fact, doesn't even have to be that way. And if you label a kid as something, whether you actually use the label out loud or not, I guarantee you he feels it. This is one of those big ones where, again, I don't want to be overly negative tonight because I want to empower you, but and there's some things we got to stop doing. And labeling is one of those things that has just been a part of the coaching world for a long time. We just have to get rid of it. Don't label young people. Describe behavior by all means, but don't label the kid. Don't label the kid. Number 4 is elevate your love without lowering your standards. Accountability. If you permit it, you promote it. You cannot allow behavior inconsistent with your culture, but do it from love. So don't lower your standards, but do elevate your love. I love that statement. Elevate your love without lowering your standards. If you permit it, you promote it. Got to hold the young people accountable. And then coach the gap. Coach the gap. And here's what I mean by the gap. There's where the athlete is now, and there's what's possible. There's where the team is now, there's what's possible. And then there's that line from the journey from where you are to what's possible called the process, right? Work the process, invest the time, solve the problems. So coaching the gap is telling the athlete or the unit or the team, here's where we are now, guys. Here's what we do well. Here's what we do okay. Here's what we don't do very well. Tell them the truth about current state, where you are now. Good things, medium things, not so good things. And then envision what's possible and then do all the work. Let's work the process. Let's go to work. Let's move from where we are towards what's possible. And then along the way, something happens. And that is you come to what we call the edge. The edge is where it gets really hard. And the edge typically, and what we mean by the edge is this is a place where we have to build skill we don't have talent for. And again, we don't have time, but it's just not appropriate with all that we're doing tonight. But every athlete on your team is capable of building a skill he doesn't have talent for. Every athlete on your team is capable of building a skill he doesn't have talent for. And the medical term, the bioneurology of it's called neuroplasticity. The brain is plastic. And there's too much talk about talent today. Way too much talk. I mean, at Ohio State, once we recruit a kid for talent, once he gets on campus, we explain to him, we don't give a rip about your talent anymore. We care about how hard you work and what kind of a teammate you are. That's all we're concerned about. And everyone, we sit down, and this is a deep belief at Ohio State coaching staff. Our job is to get every kid to get to and through the edge. We want every single athlete on our team to perform beyond his natural talent. Now, because we recruit 3, 4, 5-star talent, we're talking high levels of performance, but it's Ohio State, right? But that's the point for you. Same thing in your life. You can coach beyond your talent. Don't let talent be a limiter. Coach the gap. Tell the truth about where they are. Envision what's possible. Make the work ethic, the process of doing the work really clear. And when you get to the edge, that's where you want to be. That's the edge of your current capabilities. And the only way you can see the diagram, the only way to get to what's possible is to get through the edge. And if I had some Olympic athletes with me today, these individual sports, they really get this because they really understand the limitations of talent, and they train for behavior and competency and execution and skill beyond their talent. And it's a hugely important. And this is a diagram to draw. I draw this for every team I work with, coaches and players. I work with the Columbus Blue Jackets, and when I first met with them, this is what I gave Coach Tortorella. I gave it to the leadership group. I gave it to the whole team. And I said, every team in the National Hockey League has talent. All of them. Whoever wins the Stanley Cup, it's not a talent issue. It's something else. And the something else is the stuff that goes on at the edge. It's mental and cultural and leadership. So talent's great, but it has its limits. Let's build skill at the edge. Okay? So that's the message for tonight. Would love to get some feedback from you guys. My final thought is the culture of your team begins with the character of the coaches. The culture can't become what you are not. And so the challenge we all have is to improve the way we coach. Like I said at the beginning, your team will perform to the level of leadership that you provide. And that's some information about how to get a hold of me, and would love to hear from you guys on Twitter and or our website. But was this helpful, Justin? Did we hit the spot tonight?
Sorry, I was muted for a second. Absolutely, Mr. Kight. No, this was great. There's actually a few questions here in the chat. So first one from Coach Jones. As a head coach, how do you not only push your coaches, but also help lead and guide the administration?
Yeah, that's a tough one, but still necessary. Again, I'm going to go back to this. I think part of what we said tonight, actually, one, engage with them, build a relationship. You have to invest some time in it. I know we don't have a lot of time as coaches, but you have to engage. And then you have to help them see your vision, communicate your vision for your program. And I think the kind of things we've talked about tonight, well, I know this because I interact with a lot of superintendents, a lot of central office, a lot of principals. And the kind of stuff we're talking about tonight is the stuff that when they recognize that you're building a football program, that your vision for your program is developing the behavior skills, the whole person, I think that will resonate with administration. But engage with them, the relationship, and then I think that envisioning is critically important. Make sure they understand what your vision is in terms of your purpose, your plan, and that there's a place for every player. And then if you envision that, you communicate that, and they see you doing it, I think that's going to win over a lot of administrators.
Awesome. Coach Weaver requested that you speak about the trust and results.
Yeah, our leadership model, we actually have a leadership model called Lead Now. And if I don't know how to distribute this, I have a white paper you all can have. We have you envision something in your head where actually, I could even show it to you. If I could find it on here. Are you guys seeing my files now? Hold on a second. Hold on, let me see if I can, yeah, here we go. See if I can show this up on the screen or not.
There's actually a file share thing on the chat as well. I believe so.
Okay, what do you see on the screen now, Justin?
It's still you. You would have to share.
Yeah. I can't sure. I'd have to get out of the one I'm in. We have a leadership model that is. Can you see what's up now, Justin?
It's just still you, Mr. Kight.
Okay, I'm not sure what happened on that. All right, so we, if you guys, Justin, I can have you send something out to the guys.
Yeah.
But it's what Coach Weaver's talking about is a model we use where build trust on the bottom and achieve results on top. So it's a triad of trust on the bottom. And I don't want to give you too much information, but it's character, competence, connection. That's how to build trust. And on top, it's achieve results, clarity, accountability, support. So it's an hourglass, and that's the model that we use. And if you guys have interest in that, you can talk to Justin, and he will send you. I'll send it to him, and you can get it through him.
I'll post it to the drive. So
there you go. There you go.
Another question from Coach Borkus. I hope I'm saying that right. What are some tips on running successful staff meetings from the head coach standpoint?
Go to the Focus Tree podcast. And Urban and I did an entire podcast on how to run a meeting. So we've got a whole worksheet on how to, and that's a phenomenal question, by the way, and it's really important. And there's just some physics to that. And rather than taking much time tonight right now, but we have a lot of very specific things to talk about. That's a great podcast. And I also have a white paper on that, Justin. If coaches want that, I could be more than happy to send that out. Yeah.
I think I speak for them all when they said, we'll take any information that you're willing to provide to us.
I hear you. I hear you.
That was tremendous. Absolutely. And here we go. How often do you recommend we evaluate those 5 points? Is there a way to measure if you are getting better in any of those 5 points?
Well, I gave you the mechanics I gave you Hold on a second. I'm just reading the chat. Stu Johnson. No way. Welcome, Coach. Yeah, I remember you, Stu. You played at Wabash. I remember that. How about that? That's awesome. So I just look in the chat, and he says it's a private chat, but Stu's watching. So shout out to Stu Johnson. He's now in Louisville, Texas. Fantastic, brother. Grant, it's so awesome that you're on tonight. That's cool. I gave you the mechanics. I would initially look at yourself and your staff on a weekly basis. I don't think you need to take a lot of time at it, but maybe you do one a week, or initially you look at them real quick, but give yourself a grade based on how well you do those things. The physics that I showed you, that's how you measure yourself. Those are the things you should be doing. Those are the reference points. That's why I did what I did tonight. Someone asked, I'm considering this is private on the chat. Let me finish the statement. Leadership isn't authority based on a title. It's influence based on trust you've earned. Mm-hmm. Again, he just asked for the complete phrase. Leadership isn't authority based on a position or a title you have. It's influence based on trust you've earned.
There's a question here in regards to, the stuff we discussed tonight. If you're an assistant coach or you're just a lower level, how do you get the head coach or someone above you on board with this message?
Well, teach them, share it with them, and back to what I said a moment ago. Engage with them and then envision it, and don't take no for an answer. Don't be mean or nasty or snarky, but just be relentless. Be relentless. Be relentless. Be relentless. I'm looking at another one here. A guy wrote in, how important are your truth tellers to evaluating these 5 E's? Huge. Thank you. That's Scott, thank you for asking that question. I'm a big believer. Everybody should have a noticer and a truth teller in their life. In fact, here's what you could do, guys. This is a really powerful thing. You should team up on your coaching staff where 2 or 3 of the coaches agree that you're going to give each other feedback. Mm-hmm. And you authorize another coach on your staff to be an observer, a noticer, and a truth teller. Share the 5 E's, and then say, hey, I want you to give me feedback once a week on how you think I'm doing, and I'll do the same for you.
Wow.
That's a great way to do that. And when someone gives feedback, don't argue with them, please. That's right. Sure. Please don't argue with them. That's just not going to be successful.
How much should players be involved in decision making related to culture? Any tips for getting them incorporated?
Yeah, this is a great question. I'm going to break with what's probably common belief here. I don't believe your players should help you build the culture statement. I believe your players should help you build the culture. So you need to come up with your own culture statement, your own culture playbook. And then once it's built, then you get your players to help you communicate it. And then you're constantly asking players, how are we doing? How are you doing? Let them evaluate it. Let them own it. I always tell this to average teams, no one leads. Good teams, the coaches lead. Elite teams, the players lead. So I would make sure you do the culture the way you want in terms of the statement, and then you involve the players in building the culture and evaluating the culture, and get them to be honest about we're not where we need to be. It's the same thing as the gap, right? Let's see, some other stuff came in tonight that's private questions. I like this. I'm an AD head football coach. Eric is asking, how do we get this through to our parents? How can I increase their role to improve the culture? Again, I'm sorry for sounding like an echo chamber here. Engage with them on a regular basis and then share your vision with them and teach this to them. And the big one for parents is E plus R equals O. That's the big one for parents. But you need to sit your parents down early on and explain to them your vision for the team. Here's a purpose for our team. Here's our plan. And every player has a place in this. And then you explain it and you envision it. Show them what the culture statement is. Have a culture playbook. Give it to the parents. And then explain E plus R equals O. We're going to use this to teach your young people. When I coached, every week I would send home with the players the behavior skill that we focused on that day, that week. And that would go home with the players every single week. Like this week we talked about listening. This week we talked about emotional management. This week we talked about, and it would go home every single week for the players to go home with to the parents, and I would meet with the parents with some degree of regularity on kind of the status of the culture and where we're going as a team.
Powerful stuff.
Okay. I'm reading some other comments. True.
Yeah, a lot seems to come down to just, with.
Let me just read this. Let me read this. This is from a coach who just sent this in. Coach Kight, I was introduced to you in Focus 3 years ago. I just finished my 3rd year as a head coach. We had great kids coming back, but no leaders in the group. I completely embraced E+R=O in the culture playbook. We have made the playoffs each of the last 3 seasons with subpar talent on paper. The culture playbook and R factor is a primary reason that our program is successful. Thank you for what you do, and that's awesome. That Eric or Aaron, thank you, Matt. That's fantastic. That's the thing. I mean, this is the point. This is why I do it. This is my purpose. This is my why, is to get people to maximize who they are. I'm a big believer in pursue best version of yourself. Not you compared to somebody else, but just you compared to you. Hey, look, Weaver's back. Look at that. Coach Weaver's, there he is. I'm a big believer in helping you think about growth, a little bit better today than yesterday, a little bit better tomorrow than today. It's just that's that march. That's that journey. And Coach Wooden did that. And I love that about the way he coached basketball. Another coach just wrote in, how do you incorporate these principles of leadership if you're a low man on the totem pole and don't really have a group of players to lead yet? I need a little bit more context for that, but if you mean you're a staff guy on a team and you're not coaching a unit, you're supporting a unit, maybe go to your head coach and share with him what you learned tonight. And that's why we publish stuff. I mean, we've got stuff on social media. That's why we're going to have this R Factor online course that we're offering to be able to go back. And I know what it's like to be a young guy on a staff. I mean, when I graduated from UCLA, I coached high school football and track. I was a young staff guy at a school in Los Angeles, and I was the low guy in the totem pole. Yeah, Weaver had dad duty. That's what he had. He's back now.
Had a couple people ask about the culture playbook.
Yep. What specifically?
Just I guess what it is, where they can access it, or what, basically really what it is.
Yeah, it's what, like I said, it's these 3 categories. It's what you believe. That's category 1. How we behave as a team is category 2, and then what outcome we produce based on our behavior. So a belief with behavior and an outcome. Belief number 2 with behavior and an outcome. And then belief number 3 with behavior and outcome. I've got examples. Mm-hmm. I've got examples of track, football, hockey, basketball, swimming, banking. I mean, I got tons of them. So I've got one for athletics. And again, Justin, if you ping me or something, I don't know how we do this. I can let coach. I get it. People ask me that all the time. So,
you want me to email you?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I'll do that. And then, like I said, anything that you supply, I'll post to the drive that any coach can access it.
Another coach, Daniel, asked, using off-season teaching ERO to my guys, many events. We don't have a field now with CV19. How do you develop players into leaders? No one has stood out much leading vocally in the off-season. Going to be a young team in 2020. This vocal thing is really coming up in an issue. I'm not going to share who because it's not that important, but with the college and pro teams that I work with, they're all sharing with me that they're really struggling to get, and these are the college and pro teams, that they're struggling to get verbal leadership. Young people are afraid to speak up, and they're actually afraid of breaking a relationship. It's interesting. Even on professional teams, players would rather the culture suffer than a relationship suffer. It's interesting. They'll sacrifice culture for relationship. And so, one, you got to build the courage. You got to find the young people on your team and help them build courage. Courage, that's that inner strength. And courage isn't not being afraid. Courage is having the inner strength to do what you need to do, even though you are afraid. It's acting in the face of fear. And courage comes from belief. You're not going to be courageous if you don't know what you believe. So I think you need to sit down with your leadership candidates, if you will, And I think a leadership council is a pretty good idea. And most of the teams I work with have one. Ryan Day has one at Ohio State. The Blue Jackets have one, and I work directly with these guys. And it's about believing. And then the three big things for leadership for an athlete is attitude, action, and words. You got to teach them attitude, action, and words, because their teammates feel their attitude, they see their action, and they hear their words. Teach an athlete how to lead through his attitude, his mindset. Teach an athlete to be the hardest worker on his team. That when you look at what we're talking about, effort, ATE, you lead by action, but you also lead by attitude, and then you lead by words. The thing about words, though, is, and you teach this to the young people, your words have no credibility if it's not matched and supported by your attitude and your action.
I think that's something that's super prevalent, especially with student athletes, where let's just say they may call some people out on their stuff, but it's usually people that they may not have the best relationships with. The guys that they're really cool with, I feel like they're more hesitant to do that. I think that's something that we see. Well, I know we see that at our school.
Yeah, a couple more. They're screenagers, not teenagers. Thanks, Coach Weaver. Marty writes, I've got a belief of maximize the moment and the outcome as we choose our journey, but I'm struggling with simplifying the behavior verbiage in between. Anything pop into my head? I got to think about this. I'm a big believer in win the moment, which is what you mean by maximize the moment. Big believer in that. At Ohio State, that's a part of the culture at OSU, is win the moment. And I started that with Urban, continued it with Coach Day, personally with Coach Day. I mean, Ryan and I have spent a lot of time on winning the moment just for himself, with all the stuff he's had to deal with as interim head coach and then head coach last year, and just staying in the moment. And so I'm a big believer in win or maximize the moment, because that's how, you don't have access to the future or the past. You only have access to the moment you're in right now. I like the outcome of we choose our journey. What would be the behaviors? I have to think about that. The key to, I can say this behaviorally about win the moment, the key there is focus and refocus. So the behavior may be laser focus, eliminate distractions. That may be your behavior. Laser focus, eliminate distractions, because there's a lot of distractions. And then when you articulate a behavior in your playbook, then you can talk about the how-to. And don't let the behavior be too busy. Don't let it be too long. You can teach lots of details around the behavior, but like if your BBO for that was maximize the moment's the belief, laser focused, eliminate distractions is the behavior, and then we choose our journey is the outcome. Great. Now you can teach mechanics around it. That flows pretty well. Maximize the moment is the belief. Laser focus, eliminate distractions is the discipline behavior, and the outcome is we choose our journey. That's a great BBO line right there. Awesome. That's a winning idea, and not just for football, right? No. That's true for studying history or listen to your parents or whatever you're trying to do. So hopefully that's helpful.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Someone asked, do you ever concern yourself with the motives of those around you? As you're like, yeah, all the time. And then I immediately get rid of it. I can't deal with somebody else's. I'm not in charge of somebody else's motives. I'll say this. If someone's motives are bad and it becomes evident that the motives are bad through their behavior, I have a conversation with them. And if it's somebody that I can have an influence on, I exercise whatever influence or authority that I can. But there's a lot of bad motives around, folks. There just are, and I gotta be real careful about that. But I'm a huge fan of talk to people, not about people. If you question somebody's motives, go talk to them. Mm-hmm. Now, don't say, "Hey, I question your motives, Justin." Just get to know them, engage with them, and you got to be careful about that one. But I get it. I get it. I get it. Someone writes, vocal leadership. Would it be beneficial to have a way for athletes to report to a leadership group member if they recognize a below the line behavior until they're comfortable doing it? Yeah, that's a good idea. And that's getting the kids to, you said leadership group member, I assume you mean by another athlete on the team. And that's that engage with each other. That is hold each other accountable. That's players leading players. That's how that works. Kind of a broad question. Why do you think some coaches like Urban have success with this culture and others try to duplicate that culture but don't have the same success? Yeah, that's a very insightful question. Guys, that's one is maybe it's not their culture. Maybe they're just trying to mimic somebody else's. They didn't put enough time to think about it, and it was too much from the head, not from the heart. I mean, it's got to come from the heart. It's got to be something you deeply, deeply, deeply believe in, and it can't come across as I'm doing this because Urban Meyer did this. It's just we're gonna do this because it's the right thing to do, and then you think through what is our culture, and maybe you do land on stuff similar to what Coach Meyer did. Maybe you do land on stuff similar to what Dabo Sweeney or Nick Saban or Bill Belichick. That's fine, but just make sure you're very cognizant of the fact that you're borrowing because you believe. Don't borrow because it's to borrow. Right. Someone asked earlier, are we doing more podcasts, Urban? Yeah, we've actually recorded 2, which one, I think the next one will be posted probably Monday. I don't think we'll get it out by Friday, but we just recorded 2. They were phenomenal, man. We were smoking, and we're going to keep rolling. We got some more. Coach Morati is going to be on, by the way, our strength coach. I'm going to have him on the podcast. Yeah.
Really good. Hey, Mr. Kight, this was incredible. Incredible.
All right, guys. You bet.
Thank you so much.
I love being with you guys tonight, wherever you are. Coach Weaver. There's your boy. What's happening, young man? Good to see you guys. All right, I'm gonna go celebrate my anniversary. 28 years today, my wife and I. So we're gonna go. We're going to go out and – oh, no, we're not. We're staying in. But blessings to everybody. Good luck this year. Please follow us on social media and hopefully get to be with you guys in person at some time in the near future. So be safe, everybody.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kight.
You bet.